Hi, Alex Uding here, and I'm going to talk about hydration. This is coming off of our most recent podcast about coffee. So if you haven't listened to them yet, check out Know Better, Live Best, and you'll get a lot of great information about coffee. They're really, really good listens, so I highly recommend it. Now, we're bringing it up because there's a lot of questions regarding coffee and our hydration status. How are the two connected? Does it cause us to become dehydrated? Does it contribute to our fluid intake? So we hope to answer some of those questions. Now, as always, the videos and the information that we provide is meant for entertainment purposes only. So if you have questions regarding your health or hydration status, please consult a medical professional. So now the fun stuff. Let's talk about why hydration is important. So hydration is key for carrying out our body processes. The fluid we use helps to transport molecules throughout our body. It helps to aid in digestion. It helps in body temperature regulation. It helps in joint health, our muscle stiffness, reaction time, focus, waste excretion. So many things are influenced by the fluid we take in, which is why we need to make sure we're taking in enough to keep our body running smoothly. Now, there's different things that influence how much fluid we need, which is why it's hard to say like there's this set amount of fluid intake that you need to be healthy. We wish it could be that easy, but it's not. There's just too much involved. So different things that might influence our need to take in more fluid or less fluid include our body size. So the bigger we are, the more fluid we need. The environment. We kind of know this one intuitively. When it's hot and humid outside, our body temperature goes up, we're sweating a little bit more, and nothing feels better than like that cold glass of water. So when it's hot and humid, usually our fluid intake increases. Going into winter months, it's important to remind you that just because the environment is not triggering you to drink quite as much doesn't mean that fluid intake goes down, okay? So I see this a lot with my clients is they're just not drinking quite as much because it's not hot outside, so they don't get the thirst mechanism, and I can't stress it enough. Make sure you're still drinking even though it's cold out. Moisture wicking clothes. So moisture wicking clothes help with our temperature regulation. Now, we're not always wearing those, so sometimes the clothing we wear doesn't let us regulate our body temperature as well, or we're losing water more quickly. And so if that's the case, we might need more fluid intake. Our hormone levels. So we do know like girls and women on their period, they're losing more fluid, and so they might need more water consumption during that time. Medical status. So sometimes certain illnesses or medications influence how much fluid we're taking in or how much fluid we might be losing. This is an important one. If you're unsure, again, consult your medical professional or your medical provider, and they can help guide you in terms of how much fluid you should be taking in. And then just kind of think our activity levels and the intensity at which we're exercising or the duration we're exercising. So the longer and more intense we are, potentially the higher our body temperature and the more water we're losing. So we want to make sure we replenish that. Now, that being said, knowing that there's a lot that can influence hydration, we do have rough guidelines on how much water or fluid intake we should have. And the most general and kind of like widely accepted one is half our body weight in ounces. So if you are 120 pounds, for example, 60 ounces is roughly the amount of fluid you need to stay hydrated. And so sometimes we don't really have an idea of what 60 ounces. It can be vague. If you kind of think the water glassware that you might have in your dishware sets, that usually is about 8 to 12 ounce cups. So you would take then, 7, 8 of those cups if you need those 60 ounces. Now, some people hate tracking that, which is understandable. They don't want to sit there and count their number of ounces. So sometimes there are apps you can use to do it for you. So Waterlogged, Gulp, HydroFit are some great apps you can use that you just enter how many cups you've had and it roughly adds it up for you. You can also use the color of your urine. So I know that sounds kind of crazy, but what we excrete can give an indicator of how hydrated we are. So the lighter, more pale, almost clear color means you're well hydrated. If it's darker and very yellow and rich in tone, it might mean that you're dehydrated. That being said, sometimes vitamins and supplements and foods we take in can influence the color of our urine. So that's not then always the best indicator, but generally it can be a quick and easy one that people use. You can also use roughly a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being not thirsty, 5 being like moderately thirsty, and 10 just guzzling down water, very, very thirsty. We never want to kind of reach that state. We want to stay in the 0 range. If we get the thirst mechanism, it means we're already dehydrated. So you just want to always stay ahead, if you can, of the feeling of needing to take in water or getting thirsty. Now, with the craziness of life, we're not always great about hydrating. We just kind of put it on the back burner because of everything else going on. So some quick tips for that is keeping water on your desk at all times, or in the car at all times, or multiple places, multiple water bottles, different places, so you can just grab them and you always have one in sight. I tell my students to keep water on their desk so they can drink throughout the class period. If they're not allowed to do that, make the exchange period between classes the time you drink a little bit more water. Now, if you're sitting at a desk, you can set alarms. So every hour, just make sure you have an alarm that goes off until you're in the habit of drinking water. But that can just serve as a reminder to take in. And again, like I said, some of those apps that I talked about before have reminders that can be sent to you to say, hey, take in some fluid. Now, what contributes to our hydration status? So we know fluids do, but sometimes foods do too. So foods with higher water contents can be used and contribute to our hydration status. So if we think watermelon, it has a ton of water in it, hence the name, and that can influence our fluid intake. So melons, citrus fruits, cucumbers, iceberg lettuce, there's different foods that contribute to our fluid intake, but they'll never be enough to let us meet our total hydration. We also need fluids. So the most common one is water. Now, not everyone loves water, so there's different things you can do with it to maybe help. You can add flavoring by adding in fruit or vegetables or herbs, something to give a little flavor so you're not noticing it. Sometimes people will carbonate it a little. So there's different ways to play with water to maybe make it a little more appealing to you and your taste. Fruit juices are another one, but again, we want to be mindful of added sugars and things like that. Same thing with sports drinks. They've got the added sugars and electrolytes to them, so they can be really great for long endurance and long duration, high intensity activity, but they may not be the best for everyday constant sipping. Now we'll talk about coffee. So the big question is, does coffee contribute or take away from our hydration status? So what we know is that for people who are habituated to caffeine and they take it in daily, 2 to 3 cups is not going to influence your hydration status. That being said, if you're taking in 4, 6, 8 cups of coffee, it then can have more of a diuretic effect that might influence our fluid status. But generally speaking, if you're only having a few cups and it's not overboard on caffeine, you're going to stay hydrated and it will add to your fluid count. So I hope that you got a lot of information from this. I know it was quick, but if you have any questions, email me at advancingher@gmail.com and I'll be happy to answer any questions regarding hydration. And if I can't find the information, hopefully direct you to someone who might be able to help. That's all for now. Bye.